What's one thing that every AFOL has talked about at least once, right? Or let me put it this way. What's one thing that every AFOL has always explained to a non-AFOL when showing their Lego collection? One word, and it's not a basketball term. Swoosh ability.
There you go. Okay.
How many times have you showed somebody like, oh, dude, this ship is so cool. Look how swooshable it is. And they're like, what are you talking about swooshable? And you're like, swooshable. If swooshable good, this more better. Right? Let me explain to you as simple as I can. If swooshable is good, if you now have a TIE fighter that you can swoosh and it can go, whoa, that's sweet. Hello, bricks, chicks, and minifigures. You are listening to AFOLs Welcome, where we talk about all things Lego from the perspective of two adult collectors. We are your co-host. I'm Grinch.
And I'm West.
And today we are talking about the possible future of Lego as we dive into the brand new Smart Brick. But before we do that, West, let's banter over some bricks. How was your week?
It was good, Grinch. We wrapped up the Lego Adventures building contest here on AFOLs Welcome. So we'll take a little break to review our submissions between us and Wilderlands Brick, but we will announce the winner here shortly. And then other than that, Grinch, my week's been pretty good. I'm moving again, and so it gets back into my tradition every spring, it seems like, for the last few years, of packing up the Lego that I had built over the last year and, taking stock of did I really need to buy that? And why that comes full circle is I was in the Target today, in the local Target, and going through the Lego aisle. And I had been recently, my daughter is all over the Lego F1 cars that I have, like the full scale Speed Champions ones, if you will. And she loves playing with them and racing them around. And I'm like, man, do I need to get the McLaren one? Do I need to get, a couple of the other cars? And I walked away without buying any of them because I was just like, I just don't need to. I still might go buy one, but I know I want the GXP one from the movie, but I'm not sure if I want any of the other ones yet. We'll see. Point is, though, Grinch, that I was able to walk away empty-handed, and I'm okay with that.
West, this is your conscience speaking. Buy more Lego.
They did have a lot of the January 1 stuff, especially the city stuff, out on the shelves too. So I walked away from the Lego delivery van, the snowplow, the recycle, or the I think they had the recycling truck, but they also had the cement truck. Like, so many of the great new January 1 sets that were available, I also walked away from. The tractor, I was okay with that.
Isn't it funny when it's noteworthy that Target has Jan 1st sets out and it's 3 weeks into January? I just don't sometimes they get them out a week early, and then other times it's a month goes by.
It's kind of odd,
Target, yeah. And you're just like, where are all the new sets?
And the other weird thing is the Lego aisle at Target has started to sort of creep, right? It used to be sort of one aisle, one row, or one side of the aisle. Then it's 2. Now it's 3. The one near me, you have to go to the kids section to find the Duplo. I had to find the Speed Champions in the Hot Wheels section. And they only had just one aisle.
The unofficial girls section too now, right? Where there's Friends and Disney. Yeah.
And so it was wait, guys, what's going on here? This doesn't really make sense. So anyways, that was a little odd too.
Well, West, I said 2 things last week that were not intentionally factually wrong, but ended up becoming such. Number one, I said I was so close to being done with everything as far as unpacking goes, and I'll be done this weekend. I'll get to work on the Lego. That did not happen. I've been fixing up just certain areas of the house, and let's just say one project that involved a little bit of plumbing turned into a not a nightmare, but a lot larger project that's is extending into this weekend. So that's great. But so TBD on if I even get to work on the Lego this weekend, but it's going along. It's going fine. And
Did
I
you have
said
to call a
something.
plumber?
Oh God, no.
Okay. Well, then it's not that
I
bad of a
was
project.
I was at the point where I turned to my wife and I said, 4-letter word that started with an F, and said, at this point, it's either I screw it up more or we're gonna have to call a plumber. So
Is it
either
working now?
way, no, but we will get there. It's fine. It's all good. I just had to open up the wall a little bit. Not a big deal.
Well,
So just a little drywall patch. It's just yeah.
that's how
That's
it
easy.
starts.
Look, they're going to charge you $500 if they got to go into the wall. So I'll just go into the wall for them.
There you go.
Save $500.
Why do we even have walls? Like, it'd be so much easier.
Yeah.
You need a
Talk
outlet.
about open concept,
Okay.
like open wall.
Yeah.
Easy. Yeah. So yeah.
Look at us living in the 22nd century here.
The other thing I said was I was done with my Mines of Moria, and this is true. I was going to be. I got to the point where I shelved it for a little bit, like right after we recorded that episode. I was like, done. And then little old me, like Monday, had a long day at work, get home, open up Mines of Moria, and I'm like, this is wrong. So I'm not saying I restarted, but let's just say the instruction maker on Studio is going to have a lot of like random pieces placed in very different orders that should not have been ordered in. So I'm very happy with where it is now, though. Way happier than I was. Like, there was one area that was really bothering me, and I just, every time I looked at it, I'm like, that's wrong. It's the best way I've done it now, but that's wrong. That little thing created a full rebuild for that section. So there's a couple pillars, right? The pillars stayed the same. Don't worry. Love those. Chef's kiss. It was this little area, the Balin's tomb, right? There's the floor where the tomb is, and then there's these like little bookshelves or caves or crevice things that are under a elevated walkway path, right? If you think of it in like the tiers, and there's the pillars that are connected to that. So there's kind of two
like in little
sections.
alcove, if you will.
Yeah, it's like if it's like one giant square, there's two stories, and it's a square and a square, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
There's a surrounding square that's a walkway, and then there's the lower square which has the tomb on it, which where you enter and exit, right?
Sure.
There's this little bit of greebling on the wall, right? The walls are really flat, but there's this little kind of concave area. In the official Lego set, they just threw a little treasure chest down there, and they used kind of a tile to tent off and frame that area triangularly, and they throw a sticker on it. I brick built that, and it just wasn't working. So anyways, after a lot of snot, Lego math, and redesigning, I ended up using wedge plates to get that, specifically a wedge plate facing forward like it normally would, and one facing backwards. And it created a perfectly squared, rectangular, angled area that was able to capture a little indentation / greebling on the wall, because it goes into the wall, not out of the wall. Okay. And that's where I was struggling.
I see.
And that's why I'm going to drive myself crazy someday. Anyways.
Well, Grinch, for your sake, I'm glad you figured that out.
Yeah, me too.
I can't wait to see pictures.
Me too.
Will you be displaying that at a convention this year?
Brick World.
There you go.
I'm trying to do 2 more, so we'll see. We'll see. Since you said if I did Osceola, I had to include fog, like, thanks, bro. Not doing that. But
You could take some dry ice, and that would you could like literally have fog in your model. So
we're just gonna stop right there and head to the news. Nope. Nope. Cue the sound. Exciting Lego news. On that though, West, how about we head to the news?
let's do it.
Exciting Lego news.
All right, Grinch, for news this week, I have 4 exciting items to share. First up, polybags or paper bags. What is the state of polybags in 2026? Second, Lego Ideas vendor cart gift with purchase has been announced, and the winner is, or at least the winning submission has been put. The image has been shared. We'll talk to that a little bit later. The Lego Spring Festival Lion Dance gift with purchase was revealed. And one of the reveals we've been waiting for almost a full year now is that the first trickle of the Lego Pokemon wave has been revealed with 4 sets and a gift with purchase. So, Grinch, what stands out for you this week?
If we were worse people, we would totally make an episode and then some reality where we said polybags or paper bags. The future of Lego has changed, and just clickbait the crap out of it. But we don't do that. Can I say I am part of the problem?
Well, we knew that.
I just want to throw that out there, West.
Okay.
What that means is, in this instance, is I pre-ordered the Lego Pokemon starter set. All $650 of it. Because A, I knew I was going to get it anyways. And B, I had to get the Kanto badge gift with purchase for pre-ordering.
Is that the set? I thought that was a set.
No.
I thought
That's
the mini Poke Center was
that's an insider reward on the 27th. I also set an alarm for that.
Nice.
So
do we want to talk through the Pokemon, or do we want to start with the Pokemon in the room?
Yeah, let's address the war turtle in the room.
Yeah. I'm sure there's an elephant Pokemon, but
yeah, it's called Dunlap or something like that. It was Gen 2.
Okay.
Dunlap?
More of the Kanto Pokemon myself, and maybe the second edition. But anyways, well, let's chat on it, Grinch. You're looking that up. We got the Eevee reveal,
Don
the Pikachu.
Fan and Fanfee. There we go.
That's right.
And yeah. There's also like 5 others that I don't know. Jeez. Okay.
Yeah. So anyways, we got the Eevee, we got the Pokemon, or the Pikachu jumping out of the Pokeball, and then the starter pack reveal.
We got the Pokemon.
I know you sent me a picture of the Pikachu, and you said, "This isn't it." Can you elaborate?
It's not. Yeah, it was growing on me a little bit. The Pikachu has. I did not pre-order that one. The Eevee's good. The Eevee's really good. The starter set, the big one, the big hoss, right? I think it's technically called Pokemon Venus or Charizard and Blastoise, or like pretty elaborate creative name there. That one is really good. That one's great. And in my opinion, price-wise, ouch, right? It does feel like you're spending a lot for the base, but it's designed really well, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The Pikachu is just that the head is off a little bit. The sculpting is off a little bit on it.
He's got like really puffy cheeks.
Yeah, there's some angles that look really good, and there's some angles that look really bad. So that one, I don't want to say it's terrible because I feel like that's going to be one that you need to see in person before you can judge it better.
Yeah.
So, but what do you think?
I mean, I like the Eevee. The Eevee looks great. I would agree. I like the size of the Eevee. I wish all of them were that size. And
They
I wish
kind of are, except for the Pikachu, because the Charizard, Blastoise, and Venusaur are not ginormous, right? There's a very big base, and then I mean, proportionally too, they should
yeah.
be bigger.
Yeah, I think they all like I'm not talking proportionally though. I mean like the price point wise, the size wise. I'm looking at the Eevee and I look at the Pikachu and I get that the Pikachu's bigger, but not by a ton. And when I look at the
Yeah,
sets side by side, I'm like, what are you getting for like, because what the Eevee is like 60, $70, if I'm
I
not
think it's
mistaken.
$69.99. Yeah,
And the Pikachu's what, 200? And so for an extra,
Eevee's 60, Eevee's $59.99, Pikachu's 200. Yeah, but it's Pikachu and Pokeball.
okay. Yeah. Because the Pokeball, so the Pikachu on that set's probably worth what? If the Eevee is 60, the Pikachu's probably 80, and the rest of that is that 120 is the
I'd
base
say
and the
it's probably
Pokeball.
100 and then 100. Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean though? Like it feels rough. And I mean 650 for those, like, I don't know, man. I mean, I didn't spend
Big Van
$27 today at the
Blastoise.
Target to go buy the McLaren F1 car, so like I am not in a position to go spend 650 on a trio of Pokemon, which, like, no shade if you are.
Your brother did.
I mean, great, right? Like, kudos. I just I it's more to the issue we've already talked about. Here's a 3-wave entry and we have one sub $100 set and everything else is over
One
$100. In fact,
incredibly exclusive gift with purchase and one insider reward.
yeah, the Pikachu is almost the same price as a modular building, right? I mean, in terms of
Yeah.
value, and the starter pack, whatever, is going to be worth, what was the Tower of Orthanc? How much did that cost?
You mean Baradur or the Tower of
Sorry,
Orthanc?
Bardur. Apologies. Yeah, Bardur.
450, 460 technically.
And what? Rivendell was like 450 as
500.
well.
I think it's 499 or 450. Yeah.
So, like, I mean, this is more expensive than either of those by a considerable margin, and we're still.
West has got a 10 cent price per part ratio.
I get that, but look, they look fantastic. You're right. I think too, because it was pitched as the starter pack. I was thinking it was going to be Squirtle, Bulbasaur, and Charmander, and not the evolved forms, which, like, the evolved forms are obviously cool, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how the wave goes. I think it is a strong start ultimately, but one that has a significant barrier to entry. So it'll be interesting to see the reception of it, other than, like, man, it's expensive, but yeah.
Dude, it sold out.
I mean, yeah, so clearly
But I
people
do
are all
think
for it.
pre-orders are back up at the time of the recording, but it
Yes.
did sell out
They did, like,
momentarily, and the gift
crash the
purchase is
site.
gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So actually, Verizon, I heard, even
is that the reason there was the
network.
outage?
Yeah. I mean, if I worked for Verizon PR, I'd be spinning that for sure. No.
Have you? I mean, there's already all sorts of memes of, like, people tripping on a power cord, and then, like, they're like, first day working at Verizon, and then they trip on a power cord, and they're like, whoops.
For
This
our
must
global
not be
folks,
important.
Verizon had was it 8 hours?
It was
It
at least for me. It was
long.
from like almost 11 a.m. to I think all
I
day.
went to bed and my phone wasn't working. Yeah, I woke
Yeah,
up and it was finally working again. So
magically working again.
yeah,
And it was, I
it
mean,
just needed a
nationwide.
24-hour reboot. Yeah, it
There
was
you go.
huge. So
I tried the old trick of turning it off and turning it on again, and that did not work. So
I
I
did
was
that
out of
twice.
options.
I did it twice. No,
Oh
I
dear.
agree. It is a strong start. I did make rules for myself too, of course. I'm just gonna collect either the adult focused Pokemon sets or 151. I'm not doing anything more. There may be an exception or two, but it's not going to be. It's going to be like if they come out with a Lugia, just because I guess I'm an older Pokemon fan. So there's 1,000 something Pokemon, right? If they do this wave and then another wave like this, and like I don't need to collect those. So I
Yeah,
did establish some boundaries, and
that's
also
healthy.
I think for me, let's see what the future brings. Right, like this is obviously not going to be a one and done, but are we going to get more of this? Are there going to be minifigs? Is there going to be another wave this year? There's some rumors out there. I'm not going to address those here, but what I if it's I mean look at Star Wars and R2D2 or BB-8. This is probably not the last Pikachu we're going to get,
I
right?
mean,
If this is
especially if
successful.
it's as strong of a start as it is appears to be. The demand seems to be extremely high. So, I will say, and this is speculation because there are rumors out there. I don't think they've actually confirmed or denied this. I mean, I still would really like to see minifigures and like molded Pokemon. I know that that would cost a lot for Lego, but the mold for a Pikachu, they could like almost like flipping your R2D2, brick built R2D2 discussion, right? Like how long has the R2D2 mold been consistent? Like I don't think it's changed at all since they first came out with it. They've changed some
Yeah,
printing on
other
it,
than the
but like,
printing. Yeah.
right? So like, if they came out with a molded Pikachu, that thing would probably run the life of the Pokemon line. And so that would be really fun to see. And their molding techniques and printing techniques these days are so good that like I'm sure that would come out really well. But I would be curious to see if they stayed with Ash. I think Pokemon actually made a formal announcement that they were kind of done with Ash as like a character. I think it was just as of last year. And they're like, we want to tell new stories. And so I'd be curious to see if like how they, kind of figure that out. Cause like for you and I, Ash and Brock and Misty are like nostalgic characters in like the Pokemon TV show that like we grew up with, which was a companion to both the cards when they first came out and the Nintendo game. So if there were to be a minifigure line and sort of play sets, that would make sense to some extent, but it'd also be extremely nostalgic based and maybe not at that like 9+, 12+ level that they would really want to build at. So I don't know. I'm just sort of speculating and spitballing here, but the future's bright for Lego Pokemon, and it's one we've been asking for a long time. So it's really exciting to see.
Yeah, and I think we got quite a few questions answered that we outlined in our speculative episode when we were speculating at the beginning of last year, specifically talking about the ownership of the Pokemon rights. Like, what does this entail? Is it just going to be the Pokemon? But I think one thing is key there is the insider reward is the Poke Center from the game,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
very
Good
similar
point.
art style, at least. Like, it's not coincidental, right?
Yeah.
So it seems like the only outstanding question that we have, right? The Brick Bit Pokemon, that was another question we had, is will there be minifigures, right? Will there be minifigures and or molded Pokemon? I think if the comparison I think about is the dinosaurs, right? Jurassic Park dinosaurs.
Yeah.
If they go that route, I don't think anybody will be happy with what they produce because, well, accuracy is a big complaint, right? Scale is a big complaint
With the
when it comes to
dinosaurs,
Lego
you mean?
dinosaur.
Yeah.
With the dinosaurs. So I think you kind of set yourself up for failure in that regard because if the Velociraptor shares a leg with the Stygimoloch, for example, you can't have a
Yeah.
Pikachu sharing a leg with a Blastoise,
I mean,
right?
there's a lot more specialized Pokemon, right? That's going to be tough to sort of share bits and pieces. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So I think we got a lot of questions answered. Still, obviously, the big one, minifigures, but like you said, overall, good
I
start.
mean, couldn't you see like an Onyx done with like, kind of not the boulder piece they have, but like something really similar that like articulates like I feel like that would be so cool to see in sort of brick built form. But I'm just, imagining things at the moment. So,
Yeah, yeah.
well, Grinch, I wanted to also talk through any final thoughts on Pokemon before I
I was
press with
gonna
some other
suggest we
subjects?
talk through some of the other news.
Well, I again was in the Target today, and one of the things that stood out to me was I ran through one of the sections, and instead of poly bags on the shelves, they still had poly bags on the end caps. But in a section that caught my eye, it was a bunch of paper bags with the set printed on the front, the image of
Mm-hmm.
it. And I was like, what are these? These look so weird. And then I put two and two together because I saw Darth Vader's tie advance on it. And I was like, oh, these are poly bags. This is the future of the Lego poly bag. It's in paper. And I mean, it totally makes sense. But I thought that was really cool. I don't know if any other listeners or viewers have seen that in their local Target stores or their, Walmarts or whatever they get their poly bags. I also opened up the Doc Brown Back to the Future Speed Champion a few weeks ago, and I already talked through that. But one of the things I didn't talk through was while the main big bags were still plastic, the little bags that contain, how you open up like bag one, and there's usually like one or two smaller bags in there that has like the smaller pieces. Those were all
Mm-hmm.
paper for the first time. And so I think we're going to see here in the United States finally the move to paper bags that the rest of the world has been enjoying for the last few years. So,
I saw somebody, I think on Reddit, that was like, finally, paper bags. And of course, there was like the obligatory, like, we've had paper bags for years.
yeah, well, I mean, for the listeners and viewers who are not in the US, like we have not. So, it's still kind of novel here, even though Lego is has a huge foothold here in the United States. We're still getting plastic bags, which I get it. Like you're buying a set of plastic, so like the plastic bag is like kind of the
The
least of your
irony.
worries, right?
Yeah.
But for real, like here in the U.S., it's always been hard to recycle, and there are ways to do it. It's just challenging.
Yeah.
Um, so, anyways, I just wanted to shout that out. I did want to also share the Lego Ideas vendor cart gift with purchase. As I mentioned, it has been revealed and announced of the winner, and it's a faces like almost like a sketch artist. So it's sort of weird because it's not really a vendor cart. Like that's the one thing that stood out to me was it's not completely a vendor cart, but what it kind of looked like was like the Parisian like little bookstores that they have on the side of the Seine in Paris. Like it's because it has these cool like wrought iron fences, like beams behind it, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's a bunch of images and there's people's faces, and then you see him drawing. He's like sketching somebody else out on the street, but it's a really fun little scene and vignette, and I think that'll be an excellent gift with purchase when it is formally revealed or released. So,
I do too. I always tend to like the idea challenge ones that they come out with. They're always really, really solid. The boat,
yeah,
right? It comes to mind immediately. So it's usually different, smaller kind of vignette style builds that you just don't see as like regular Lego sets. So yeah. Well, West, let's head over to the future of Lego.
let's do it.
Today's topic. So, Wes, today's topic, we are talking all about the smart brick and speculating a little bit on what it means for Lego, right? Is it the future of the Lego brick? So, why don't you just kind of quickly establish what the smart brick is, And we obviously talked a little bit about it last week. We shared some initial kind of gut reactions, but after I sat with it for a while, I was like, let's do an episode. I've got some thoughts, I've got some feelings, and yeah. But what is the smart brick? And tag,
Yes,
and tag. I think the tag is just as important as well.
it is. So great question, Grinch. The smart brick is a Lego 2x4 that runs off of rechargeable batteries. That includes with every set, I believe, every set they should have a recharger. And the smart brick has lights, it has sounds, it also has a little bit of a gyroscope in it so it can tell if it's being turned upside down. But most importantly, it has the ability to read the smart tags. And the smart tags are going to be found on like tiles and then on the back of minifigures. And so when you have a set that has a smart brick in it, if you put the minifigure in it, and then, so let's say you have like Darth Vader's TIE Advance, right? That's one of the Lego Star Wars sets that will have the smart brick in it. You put Darth Vader into the TIE Advance with the smart brick in it, and you swoosh it around. It's going to make the noises of a TIE fighter, which is really kind of novel and neat. Then let's say you take that exact same smart brick and you throw it into Luke's X-Wing, which will be another set coming out. Same smart brick reads the tag on Luke Skywalker and goes, cool, I need to now make X-Wing noises. And so you do the same sort of thing. You swoop it around. It makes the sound of like the X-Wing lasers shooting. I'm sure there's an R2 scream in there somewhere as well. And so this, exactly. All the data is kept on the tag. The brick just reads that information and then is able to emulate those or create those noises and effects based off of the tag that it reads. They're also able to be kind of paired into like a miniature network. And I know I said NFC, so I think it uses like near field communication or some sort of Bluetooth connection between the smart bricks. I don't know how they are communicating, but they are communicating with each other. And so then you're able to sort of create a miniature network and pair them, or I don't know how many total you can add to the pair. So those are some interesting questions.
Yeah, I think
we can dig into.
They notably did not disclose that.
Yeah, but conceivably, quite a few. At least we know more than one. So they can be grouped together.
It's X plus one.
Sure, exactly. So they can be grouped together, and they can be zooped, and like you can have your little dogfight or whatever. So it's really interesting to see kind of what that looks like long term, and that's what we're going to kind of talk about today. So that's kind of your smart brick in a nutshell. Makes noises, makes lights, reads the backs of minifigures and these tag tiles that get placed on sets and other items to kind of create effects in your little Lego universe.
Well said. Well done. You're one smart brick, West.
Oh, thank you.
But let's talk through the why. So before we talk about what's good about it, why would Lego do this, right? Innovation comes to mind, right? In some regards, it's status quo. Every few years, Lego seems to make a new foray into some sort of enhanced brick experience, right? It's never been as specific as a brick, but something like Dimension comes to mind. Something big swing and a miss like Video comes to mind, right? Hit inside. So it's not new necessarily. This is an avenue Lego has explored for many years, multiple times, and every few years, or a couple of years at that, right?
Yeah.
But I think the question, right, is it a gimmick or is it innovation?
I really like that question, and it's interesting to see where people are sort of coming on, like what side they're coming down on. So I'm not sure where I fall on. We have traditionally sort of highlighted and kind of laughed at some of the Lego gimmicks over the years because I would say they're not shy about it, and some credit where credit's due. Lego is a learning organization in that they keep trying new things, and I think they keep learning what not to do.
Yeah.
And so I think this could just be one more evolution of this. At one point, Friends could have been an innovation or gimmick, right? This similar conversation here, similar conversation surrounding Bionicle, right? For every Bionicle that succeeds, you have Robo Riders and Throwbots that failed. So yeah, we had video and hidden side fail with smart things. We've had how many Mindstorm variations that have kind of sort of been successful, sort of not, but maybe not garnered mainstream attention. The light up lightsabers from Star Wars Episode 3, the original run, and now we have the smart brick. So maybe it'll
Wes,
stick.
I want to take you
Maybe it won't.
all the way back to 2006 because this
Yeah.
is a quote from me. The iPod Touch is stupid because it's just an iPhone without a phone. Now, originally the iPhone was exclusively on Singular, which was an AT&T, right?
Yeah.
It was Singular, AT&T bottom, and what a world to think that they could get away with just being exclusive to one carrier. But I think the point I bring that up is that was a real story, a real quote from me in like 7th grade, and I ended up getting the iPod Touch like a month later. But it also didn't last very long because eventually the iPhone expanded, but there was a hot moment there where I had an iPod Touch and a BlackBerry, and yeah, I mean,
iPod Touch lasted a while.
It did, and it
Relatively
wasn't
speaking.
pointless. Yeah, I mean, technology can accelerate so quickly after proof of concept, right? Sometimes all it takes is to get something out there, and then it'll rapidly change. And I'm getting ahead of myself, I think, a little bit in the conversation because we'll come back to this, but. What if it's no longer 2x4 brick, right? What if the next iteration of this is smart plate, right? And we're talking about a 1x1 Lego plate that can wirelessly charge from a base, and it's in a Speed Champion set, and it acts as the headlight. Or it, as you roll the car, it sits there. It's got the smart tag on it, and it goes as it speeds away. I mean, that's where this could go. And I think that's why this is exciting to me. So let's live in a world here where it is innovation. Why would Lego need to innovate? Lego is perfect just the way it is. Don't touch my bricks.
I mean, so I want to answer that question. Before I do, I want to acknowledge, right, that like Lego has a core market. And every time that they do something new, in my mind, it seems like they're not advertising necessarily to the core market. They're trying to advertise externally with this new product. So take like augmented reality, right? Or, name your gimmick that you wanted to pick. It feels like something on the margins, not the main core audience of Lego. But to answer your question, there's all sorts of reasons why Lego might be wanting to try to spice things up, right? I mean, they've been making this plastic Lego bricks since the 1960s, and it has more or less remained unchanged since then. And yes, Lego has come a long way since those early Lego play sets. Lego's come a long way in the last 2 decades, 3 decades. We've acknowledged that in our own kind of history as KFOLs and then AFOLs. But that can only sustain you so far, right? And so at some point, Lego's got to think ahead of like, what is next? And you had mentioned this, we had talked earlier in the week, and you're like, hey, do we have a conversation here? And we kind of basically dry ran the show, right? But we talked about like, right now Lego is competing against social media. It's competing against video games. It's competing against just, other toys. Like there's so much going on right now for kids' attention. And it's just so hard to maintain that these days. Not necessarily because I think kids have shorter attention spans. I just think they have more options. Like when we were young, It was like there was a few gaming consoles, right? PlayStation, N64, like those things. We could watch VHSs, right? But like you had to wait for the Disney Vault to release a movie to go buy it on VHS. And that was a whole big thing. They'd be like, we're releasing Bambi for the first time in 10 years from the Disney Vault. And you can go buy the VHS. Maybe you don't even remember this, Grinch, but that was like a thing that they would advertise, and they'd be like,
I've referenced the vault on this podcast before, Boomer. Over here with your game stations and play cubes
but the point is, like,
and P32s.
now, like, we have Disney Plus with like every Disney movie ever made on it, right? And so, like, not only do you have more options that are more immediately available, but I think Lego now has just their competition space isn't traditionally the toy space. It's also movies and television. It's also
it's
social
entertainment,
media.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's entertainment as a whole. And so if you want to be competitive in that space, you have to find a way to both liven up your current brand, but also expand it and bring in more people. And so I think Lego is trying, right? I think that's what they tried to do with augmented reality and video. I mean, video was effectively Lego TikTok. It just, really didn't take off. Also, like a 6-year-old playing with, Lego TikTok is questionable. I'm not surprised.
Probably doesn't meet their core values.
Oh dear. Anyways.
Well, I think to wrap it in a bow, West, if I may, wrap your statement here in a bow, is for the longest time before 2020, specifically this focus on AFOLs, right, and these one-off IPs with the icons line. The sentiment, the thought was Lego would never partner with Hasbro because it's another toy company. Now, we don't have any definitive, Hasbro statement from this, right? This was purely speculative. But the thought was it's a competing company, right? It's a toy company versus a toy company. But now we're in a world where we've had a few Hasbro sets, specifically what comes to mind is Transformers. We're still getting them. I mean, Transformers itself was its own toy brand, right? It wasn't a movie IP, it was a toy brand.
Yeah.
And you're getting that collaboration with Lego because it's almost a necessity now because Lego is such a giant. Lego needs to look outside of the toy industry at the video game industry, right? At shoot sports, right? I mean, anything that involves you using your time for entertainment purposes, right? If you think about sports, NFL on Sunday, they compete with everything from a movie to church, right? Anything that takes up your time on Sunday vocationally, sorry, not vocationally, that means work, non-vocationally for leisure and not work, leisure and pleasure, it is competition, right? And I think that's what we're seeing here.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lego is one of those things that you can multitask a little bit, right? Like you can watch a movie and build Lego. Mm-hmm. But it's not like listening to an audiobook where you can like do the dishes and listen to an audiobook. You can drive to work and listen to an audiobook. And so in that regards, Lego is kind of like reading where it's like you have to set aside time intentionally to go do it. Which means, like you said, you're competing against something else that you could also be doing. And unfortunately, we are just at this point where like every ounce of our time is being, double tapped, triple tapped to doing other things, right? And it's hard to sometimes just think intentionally about one thing because we just either don't have the time to do it or we feel so compelled to stack as much into that time block as possible. So
dude, it's such an interesting time for this conversation because Stranger Things just finished a few weeks ago. There's been some what I would say is fair criticism on the writing of the show. And there's been a lot coming out about the Netflixification, I just made that up, of screenwriting specifically for TV shows, because allegedly higher ups are mandating that you have to explain what you are doing in a way that somebody can understand what's going on in the TV show while they're doom scrolling. Those are the exact words. And so if you watch Stranger Things, there's a lot of talking about what you're doing. There's a lot of, so this is me. I am going to go to do this thing now. And it's like, nobody talks like that. You know, you're not, when you're making a plan, it's like, hey, we're going to go to, you do this, like a circle over here. You're going to go over. There's a lot of talking through what they do. And apparently it's this mandate from Netflix higher up saying, you need to make sure that people understand what's happening in the show, because we don't even have their full attention while they're watching a 45-minute episode of something. And it's funny, you're either on your phone or you're building a Lego set, right? So, so Netflix even recognizes that, hey, we're competing for multiple attention spans at once, right?
I mean, I think I haven't heard that, but it would make sense. You open the can of worms.
Just Google it, and you'll unfortunately you'll doom scroll on it.
Yeah, you open the can of worms, so I'll leave you with this too, which is I had heard NPR does a pop culture happy hour podcast, and they were reviewing the end of Stranger Things, and they said what was interesting about Stranger Things is it's almost a parallel of like the life of streaming services, because season 1 everyone's excited about, like the first season, it's kind of new, it's different, it's a little edgy, but it's familiar. And that's kind of how Netflix came onto the scene, and everyone's like, wow, this is like this really great service. And like, it wasn't like fully matured like it is today, but like it was still sort of like surprising us with stuff like Stranger Things. And then you get to season 5 of Stranger Things, and it's just kind of like tired and worn out. And it's like 10 years later, and you're just like, what am I still doing here? Like watching these characters, like, and they're like, it's kind of a parallel for where Netflix is today. It just feels odd. You're like that friend who doesn't realize, like, hey, you need to leave. Like, it's just hung around the party way too late. So,
were we gonna start talking about Wednesday and other shit? No, I'm just kidding. No, so I think when we were chatting to you, right, we talked about New Coke, right, and infamously, Coke was doing okay, right? It wasn't the end of times, but there was the Pepsi taste test that was going on. Younger generations were liking Pepsi more, so Coke needed to innovate, right? And they came out with New Coke. And ultimately it failed, but it got people reignited with the brand, right? Mm-hmm. And sales went up. They weren't necessarily like they weren't going to go bankrupt or anything like that, right? But it was flat, right? The future was grim. So it's just an example of where somebody you try to optimize, you try to innovate, it doesn't work, but just the fact that you're innovating, you're doing something new, allows you to bring more and more people into the brand.
Yeah, and I like this comparison, and I brought it up the other day because the story of New Coke is fascinating, and everything you've shared is more or less how it went. And it's a story of a brand that felt like it needed to innovate. It felt like it was behind. And they were, by all accounts, behind Pepsi. And they pivot with this new product. They call it New Coke. And exactly like you said, there's this huge backlash, and people are like, no, I want the classic Coke. Like, it had become so ingrained in people's lives that they're like, I don't need this new thing. I want the old thing back.
What was this crap?
And in fact, they did keep New Coke, I think, all the way into the 2000s. And so you could have bought it about a decade ago, I believe. People can Wikipedia how long that lasted for. But Classic Coke came back stronger than ever and has carried the company since then, and has continued to be sort of the cornerstone of the Coke empire. What's fascinating about it is at the time the board, the kind of leaders of Coke, they took away two things. They said we weren't smart enough to sort of do this on purpose, but we were also not dumb enough to realize like we didn't have to try, like we needed to try something, but like we weren't trying to like create the sort of guerrilla movement to reinvigorate Coke. And so I see comparisons with Lego a little bit, where I think maybe they feel a little backed in the corner considering this environment of this entertainment environment that they have to compete in. And they're like, man, how do we, create this new edge? And like by all accounts, and especially if you consider like how well the newest Pokemon set has been selling, Lego's doing just fine. Core Lego, the plastic brick is doing just fine. And I don't know if they need to innovate in that way. And they need to innovate in the smart brick. And so I'm not calling the smart brick new Coke. I'm saying I think there's some parallels to how both of the companies were feeling. It appears like there's some parallels between how both of the companies were feeling when that was created, when New Coke was created and when the smart brick was created. And we'll kind of chat on it in the end too, of sort of some thoughts and feelings there. But I think that's a interesting sort of example from history to sort of draw some connections with.
And I think if we go back right to New Coke and when it was created, the people were in some regard looking for something different, right? That's why Pepsi was picking up with younger folks, right? Just generational shift. You could point to some additional parallels, like Lego probably in some regards has less, but in other regards has more competition than they ever have before, because the competition they have now is different, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
They have a
absolutely.
huge market share. They're the biggest toy company in the globe, right? But the competition they have now is not just new systems. In the early 2000s, it was Kinects, right? It was Mega Bloks was a direct comparison, but considerably worse. But you had Kinects, you had different sorts of building toy creations, right? And it was all like their own system, but not the brick, with the exception of Mega Bloks. Now you just have direct knockoff, right? I mean, literally full piece assortment of Lego copies. It's what it is, right? Fake
Yeah.
Lego is fake Lego. And some of those brands have picked up like Funhole, right, or whatever it's called now, Lumi Bricks, right? And I think there would be a lot of sentiment from the AFOL community that this is the wrong move, because all I want is to have lights in my Lego set. That's the innovation I want. I want a new train track, right? Those are the areas I want to see Lego innovate in. In some regard, like you said, Lego's doing just fine with adults. This is focused on the play, the core of what Lego is as a company, and ensuring there are new people coming into the brand from a younger age so that there's more AFOLs 20, 30 years from now.
Yeah.
It's that the strategy is to not engage with AFOLs in this realm, at least from what we can tell, right? At least what we can gander from what's been presented, what's been marketed, is this is around the play experience, right? Pure and pure. Now it could evolve into something. I think we'll speculate on that a little bit, but I think that first and foremost is to understand this is about that next generation of Lego user, just like
Yeah.
New Coke was about the next generation of Coca-Cola drinker.
But I think much like the New Coke saga, I think Lego could be drawing the wrong conclusion. I think there's a potential for that.
Absolutely.
Which, like, in the version of the Coke history, wasn't necessary. Like, the Pepsi challenge, the comparison had been done for a while. And so Coke already knew that Pepsi tasted better and that people preferred Pepsi. But Coke was not competing in other areas surrounding Coca-Cola. And so I'm wondering if Lego is finding itself in a similar, you know how like when you get antsy about something and it's like, I can't not do something. And so you have to do it. But sometimes that action you take only makes things worse, or like doesn't actually help you or make you feel any better. Right. And I'm wondering if that's
this
kind
one
of,
time I had a giant global soda company and I was sitting there like, I got to do something, I got to change. And I was like, well, I could
gotta
come out with like a
innovate, right?
new tasting. Yeah. I was like, I could come out with a new
But
flavor.
I mean, look, you know, some of like the Silicon Valley tech bros would be like, you got to be a disruptor, right? But sometimes innovation for innovation's sake isn't really a good thing. In fact, it can be a big swing and a miss. And if you're burning millions, if not billions of dollars in R&D, like that can be a really big deal for a company. And like that I don't think like if Smart Brick fails, that's like make or break for Lego. I'm not sure how much they ultimately invested in the R&D for the Smart Brick. I'm sure it's quite a bit because it's a pretty nifty piece of tech. But at the same time, too, I mean, this could be a major. It can be a situation where there's like a major setback. I mean, think of like Mark Zuckerberg introducing Metaverse a few years ago, and they were selling like real estate in Metaverse and all sorts of shenanigans that was going on with that, and like nobody uses it because it's stupid. And they were so
It's funny. I was
yeah,
gonna bring up Meta too, right?
yeah.
But I was gonna take it like the innovation of Facebook was not the social media platform. It was targeted advertisements.
Well, right,
That's
yeah,
why
yeah,
Mark Zuckerberg's a billionaire, right?
yeah.
It was not Google, right? Monetized the search engine, right? It didn't create the search engine, it monetized it,
It just like
right?
made it way better.
YouTube
Yeah,
has created Hollywood from you and pays people $0 for producing their content. Not you don't as a creator, you don't get $1 until you get a big enough following and create enough content, right? And at that point, YouTube's already made money. So it's a very interesting how the original intent of a lot of technology specifically is usually never its final purpose.
yeah, and so that I think that wasn't necessarily where I was going, but what I was gonna say is like I think, but
You're
that's a
going
fair
more of the
point.
swing and the miss.
No, but there could be. I think so. I'll
Hey, you
answer.
need you need $1 billion to lose $1 billion. That's all I'm saying. That's what Mark
Yeah,
Zuckerberg's saying
right.
right
Like,
now.
how do you become a millionaire? You start with $5 million, right? Like,
That's right.
um, I think the point you're making though is like we don't really know what the final form of the smart brick will take, and I think that's a really sort of wise conclusion to draw, which is like, hey, this could be really big, but it could also be really big in a way that we don't know, and I think we have some really interesting ways to sort of speculate for the viewers and listeners of like where this could go. Your discussion with Speed Champions, I think, is right on the money. If it could get small enough, if you put it in your Bugatti Chiron and it made the engine noise of that Bugatti, like that would be really neat. And then you take the same smart brick and you pop it into your Speed Champions F1 car and it makes the noise of an F1 engine instead. Like that would be so cool, right? You put it into your Fast and the Furious one and you get some track about, from Dom Toretto about like family, right? Like, that would be neat.
I'm
I think
there. You sold me on the family. Give me a
nice
Corona
car.
in the family.
What's the retail on this? Um, I think what I'm saying though is right. Like sometimes companies sort of work themselves into this condition where they feel like they have to innovate when like in reality they didn't really need to, or they needed to innovate but not in the way they thought. And I'm curious if Lego is finding itself in that position too. Only time will tell, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Coke didn't realize New Coke was a failure, and well, pretty immediately, but actually, it took them a while to kind of figure that out. So and formally rebrand Coke as Coke Classic. But anyways, if you want more information about that, there's a great podcast called Acquired, and they did a whole episode on the history of Coca-Cola, which is where we're kind of pulling that history from. So feel free to listen there. Point is, we just don't really know. So, Grinch, I mean, what are some of the pros that you can think of the smart brick?
For me, and I shared it last week, but we'll talk through it a little bit more now, is there's no phone.
Yeah.
And I also think it's interesting that they actually specifically call that out on the box, and I'm glad they do, right? Phone free. I think it says phone free usage
Phone free
or
fun.
phone free fun. Phone free fun. Thank you.
Oh, I don't know. I'm
But
just.
no, I think it verbatim says phone free fun. Like,
I mean,
so
sold.
yeah, but going back to when everybody goes right, sometimes it's better to go left, right? And that Netflix conversation we had about how everybody's distracted, it seems like this is not intended to just add another distraction to your life, right? It is meant to enhance the play of the brick. So for me, a big pro is that there is no phone.
Yeah. Which is kind of the core element of what Lego is anyways. And so by finding ways to advance that core product to keep you from using your phone or bringing the phone into the equation,
Mm-hmm.
you're still sort of keeping people kind of focused on that core product and idea longer.
Yeah, it's very self-aware and respectful of the product, right?
Yeah.
And it was the powered up with the sounds, right? It powered up was its own system, but there was the train system of powered up where you could Bluetooth connect with your phone to your train motor, right? Your motor.
Yep.
And I believe it was also even like the roller coaster and stuff like that, where you could use powered up app and it would make noise, right? Your train would roll on the track and choo choo, but you're still on your phone, right? You're getting a
Mhm.
notification. You've got this giant thing in front of you as you're interacting with it. You know, it's easiest to use your phone when it's in your hand, right? And if you're using it for Lego, like you got your phone in your hand, right? And as I'm even saying this, I'm actually looking down at my phone for some godforsaken reason as I'm talking about my phone, because that's just what you do in
We're glued to
2025, 6. Yeah, I mean, we really are. So the fact that you don't need this is a huge bonus, right? It also tells you, like, again, this is in some regards geared towards kids, right? As a father, like my 12-month-old, it's not allowed to watch TV, use the phone, right? You know, you're not supposed to for 12-month-old, but like you you don't want that sort of play, right? You want that phone free time, that phone free fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you said, Lego's sort of honoring its core values there.
What's one thing that every AFOL has talked about at least once, right? Or let me put it this way: what's one thing that every AFOL has always explained to a non-AFOL when showing their Lego collection?
Mm,
One word, and it's not a basketball term. Swoosh ability.
there you go. Okay.
How many times have you showed somebody like, oh, dude, this ship is so cool. Look how swooshable it is. And they're like, what are you talking about, swooshable? And you're like, swooshable. If swooshable good, this more better. Right? Let me explain to you as simple as I can. If swooshable is good, if you now have a TIE fighter that you can swoosh and it could go, wow, that's sweet. I don't care who you are. That is cool, right? If you got an
I
X-wing,
mean,
dunk, 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 right? That was a bad example of the sound, but like,
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. I hear you, and I think that's totally fair, right? And we have another point here on like playability, and I think all of that kind of connects, which is like you're just adding another dimension to playing with the Lego set in a way that you're either having to imagine, which is, I don't think this replaces the imagination, or you're making the noises for yourself if you're Grinch, and now you're kind of getting it for real and it's authentic and it's,
My noises I make are real and authentic.
it was spot on. It was like I was there.
Thank you.
But anyways,
In a
I
galaxy
think
far, far away.
it just adds a whole new dimension to the playability piece.
Okay, sorry.
In a really, interesting way. And so, oh, all of the
they actually recorded me for
yes,
some
yes,
future R&D, you know.
yep.
Okay, all right, we're back.
We're back. So, anyways, yeah, I think that is a huge pro here in the Lego world.
Misa like brick. Okay, sorry. I think it's cool too that the bricks communicate, right? I mean, it's a great. It shows that there's more potential here, and I think you could have it as a negative, but I actually really like the smart tag system, because what it means is that the brick is the brick, right? The brick is
Yeah,
the computer, but the tag is the game that you put into the computer, right? And that could be Age of Empires, it could be Counter-Strike, it could be Halo, right? It could be whatever you want. Heck, maybe what that means is in the future, you can program your own tag. Wouldn't that be cool? Right? If it reads
Yeah,
red,
print
it
your own
makes this,
tag.
right. I mean, what does that mean? Like that would be really cool. Kind of like people have done with the pie bricks or whatever it is, right? So I think those are some of the pros. Did you have any else, West?
Well, I wanted to imagine with our listeners here and our viewers of a scenario that you could see, and one of them that I could see. I mean, I've got a few scenarios here. So let's say you have your Speed Champion set, your F1 car, and it has its smart brick in it, and then you have like the Lego Speed Champion Grandstand, which they haven't made for a while. I think they made one for some of the original F1 cars, but let's again imagine, or like the F1 paddock, where they do the maintenance on the car. But as you drive your Speed Champion car past the paddock, you either get like all of the sounds of them doing, the pit stop on the car, or you drive it past the finish line and there's a smart brick on the podium for the finish line, and you get like the roar of the crowd as it like goes under the flags or whatever. All of that's possible because they're able to communicate to each other. Here's scenario 2 for everyone to imagine. You have a Lego UCS Star Destroyer that you've purchased with smart bricks, and you have the Lego Blockade Runner that came with it that has a smaller smart brick in it, or it's based around the 2x4 smart brick. And now as you fly the Blockade Runner past the Star Destroyer, you get the sound of like the lasers, the sound of the tractor beam. But as you take it like around the Star Destroyer, things occur based on a position that it gets to, depending, or like a trench run in Star Wars or something, right? And you hit a certain point and it's the sound of the proton torpedoes launching from the X-Wing as they go down the exhaust port. But you only get to that if you go down the path and you get the turbo laser shooting and Darth Vader or whatever, and then you get the proton torpedo launches, right? Like there's ways with multiple smart bricks that you could theoretically see stuff like that occurring. And I think that's really exciting. I think it's really neat. So I think there's a lot of potential here in the future if that's something that they wanted to, push.
Well, let's slightly transition to the cons, because I'm going to say one, but I'm also going to say it's a pro.
I know,
at the same
and
time.
we're going to talk future later, so I'm getting ahead of myself, so I apologize.
I hope listeners find that we're kind of cautiously optimistic / excited about what this means in the future, even though we're not necessarily lining up day one to go buy one of these sets, right?
Yeah.
And not excited in a way of like, oh my God, look at what Lego has done. This is amazing.
We're not part of land, guys. We're not trying to sell or hawk Lego sets.
Right. We're not. We're just trying to talk about what we honestly feel about it, right? And in an adult focused way. So the con is it's going to add cost. Number one,
absolutely.
Right, period. We've seen it, right? And I've
not
even
a,
argued
not a
that
huge
it's not
increase.
not as much as we would think. Yeah. There's a law out there. I believe it's called Moore's Law, which is like a technology specific. I don't know if it's a business law or what's it, but essentially it's as computing power doubles, your cost stays flat or drops, right? You saw it. We talked about iPhones, right, have stayed relatively consistent in price. I know they've gone up a little bit over time, but not proportionally to the computing power that you have. The computing power in your iPhone 16 is not 16 times the computing power of the iPhone 1. It's probably tenfold or 1,000 times, right? I mean, it is much more powerful for nearly the same price. And there's a curve of pricing. I believe it was popularized by one of the big consulting groups that essentially they said technology cost drops 20 to 30% every time cumulative production gets doubled. So anytime you make new technology and you make it twice, your cost to make it again is 30% less, essentially. So why I'm saying that is, yes, it adds price, but as this technology gets into more and more Lego sets, it becomes easier and cheaper for Lego to produce. And as the smart brick becomes smarter, if I may, it will relatively most likely be the same price, if not eventually still even cheaper than what's there today. right?
Yeah.
Think of original computers would take up an entire room and cost thousands of dollars, and now you've got literally 20,000 times the computing power in your phone, in your keyboard that communicates with your phone than you did in those original computers, right?
Yeah.
So it is a huge opportunity here to improve upon. I mean, in some regards, this technology, the smart brick, feels a little bit rudimentary already, right? There's nothing necessarily incredibly groundbreaking with it, right? This is not necessarily any first of its kind technology. So thinking of a future in 5-10 years where they get this from a 2x4 brick to a 1x1 plate, and it's still the same cost for the end user, is certainly plausible, if not probable.
Potentially, certainly, right? I do want to highlight some more cons though before we keep jumping to the future.
Oh no, now we're on cons. That was the introduction to cons.
Fair enough.
Everything's awesome. Everything is awesome.
Right.
It's just so awesome. It's a con.
I mean, you mentioned the added cost, right? Which again is going to be a con for a little bit until the production gets to a point that it can, they've made so many of them that they've made up the R&D costs that it took to produce it. It's a 2x4, so it's not like their production of like the brick itself isn't really costly. Probably why they picked a 2x4, and also size constraint. One of the things you mentioned in our notes, though, is it vandalizes the minifigure. And we see the tiles, right? I'm calling them tag tiles. It also sounds like tactile a little bit, which is unrelated. But the tag tiles, it's a 2x2 tile with the image on it. But then the minifigure also has the similar image on the back. And it's effectively a QR code. It's round. It doesn't quite look like a QR code, but it's more or less a QR code. But every minifigure that you're going to get that is smart brick enabled has that QR code printed on the back. And I mean, what that tells me, right, is that while Lego has never intentionally made collectible figures other than the collectible minifigure series, obviously, right? Like the figures in your UCS sets aren't going to have these smart tile backings on them, the QR codes. They're going to have the regular printing. Because you buy a UCS set and you're expecting to get like the best version of
the minifigure is only changing if it's a smart minifigure, but
right.
the smart sets have regular minifigures in them.
Yes, but they also have the smart figures, right? So,
yep.
I mean, so that'll be kind of interesting.
Yeah, but like I overreacted and said that vandalized them. It does look weird. So I do hope there's a solution there, right? It does look a little bit silly. The R2D2 is missing part of its back, right? It's flat. It's ironic. We talked about how the R2D2 minifigures never actually changed, I guess, until now. 26 years.
Right? Oh, is it flat?
It's flat on the back, yeah.
Oh,
to accommodate the tag. So you can stick the tag on there. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. So it has changed. Aha, we were wrong. But
oh dear.
One thing too is and I've seen this criticism a lot is the set design itself is clunky. But I think, not to just be a Lego stan here, but I think part of that is to accommodate the brick, right? It does though. The X-wing, the brick is on
to accommodate the brick.
It is, but that's one area I think could be improved and should be improved as time goes on, right? As people get more familiar with the smart brick, it's no longer, you don't need it visible right there so everybody can see it, right? It's you don't need the marketing image of somebody like, oh look, and I move it onto the red area of the X-wing, it makes the noise, right? If I slide it back, it makes this noise. It can become more integrated, and it might not be more integrated. It just can also become, especially if you're doing mock building, right? So it is a con because the sets do feel like they're 20 years old. But what do I know?
It does. It could be more integrated, but it has to be accessible so that it can be moved, and it has to be accessible to do things like read the minifigure. So it's an interesting challenge that Lego's created for themselves, because to recharge your smart brick, you don't want to have to tear your set apart. So they do have to have it pretty accessible.
Fair. So very fair.
You could, in their example on at CES, you can move it from the car to the duck, right? Which means inevitably it's going to have to be out in the open, if not sort of easily accessible by removing a plate or a tile or something. So I don't know, man. I think the clunky
Well.
set.
Let's challenge that notion a little bit. Let's the X-wing, right? There's the sloped plate brick piece that's like the boat hull piece. You know what I'm talking about? I forget the
Mhm,
actual
mhm.
name, but it's usually like a 3x4, or sorry, 4x4, and
Yeah,
it's essentially if you took four slopes, inverted slopes, and you stuck them back to back, you got
yeah.
a little boat trough, right? The original X-wing used a lot of those. What if you had that? You had tile, you had your plates to give it height. Put your smart brick in there. You had a little rail piece so you could move back and forth, and then you put one of the folding versions of that on the top, right? You could have the
Mm.
smart brick in there. You could have a little rail piece so you slide it forward, right? You slide it back, and the brick moves.
Can
And then
I
you just
can
flip it
I
open, you pull the brick out. I'm just saying it's a possibility, right?
can I say that I think Lego made a mistake?
Oh, snap.
I think printing the minifigures with the smart brick QR code was a mistake because they could have just put that on another tile. And maybe they do something like light gray, bluish gray tiles are for vehicles and dark gray, bluish gray tiles are for minifigures or whatever. But by not by doing the tiles and the figures in a set like the X-wing, it's got to be right behind the minifigure so it can read the minifigure. So it's got to be easily accessible, right? Whereas if they just did tiles, you could have strapped the tiles on the inside of like the X-wing compartment, like you said, and you could have almost like created a little trap door where you could have opened it up, accessed the smart brick, the tile, have it read the tile, close it all up, and then it's good to go. And then you're just, swooping your X-wing around.
Swoosh,
Um,
swoosh.
yes, exactly. And I think that is, I think that's a bit of an error, an execution error on Lego's part, to be honest. But those are my thoughts. Sorry, that was just like fresh off the dome.
No, no, hey, bro, this is our podcast. You can share whatever thoughts you have. Well, not whatever thoughts you have. That's for the late night edition. No, so I think I think I think that's a con for right now, right? Like this is the first pass, right? The best feedback Lego's ever going to get on this is consumer feedback and experience,
Yeah,
right? Hey, this would be better if, this would be better if, right? I maybe it is a survey. I want to see this in my UCS Death Star because it would be so cool if you got like dun, 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 boom, with the giant laser, right? Maybe maybe you get the QR code off the minifigure and you go to a I mean, the future. I'm more excited about the future of this than I am about this what I'm seeing here, right? I mean, the
let's
implications
talk
that this
about
could have.
the future of the
Well,
smart brick.
I'm going to transition just like we did from the pros to the cons with the pro con. This is going to be another con future conversation. Future con. Every set comes with a charger, which is good right now because these are there's like three sets, but it's wasteful. Number one. Also, it's a rite of passage to have a giant container of brick separators so you can show it off to all your friends. But I don't need a giant bowl of chargers, right? It would be really good if you could maybe reduce cost with by taking a charger out of it. And what if the future of the smart brick is you just get the smart brick on the side and it's
Mhm.
so integrated into the Lego system that the sets are designed for it with or without it, right?
Yeah,
Or maybe you just don't need a charger, right? Because every set coming with the charger I think is good right now because like it'd be BS if it was only in the big set, but or maybe you drop the prices by $5 and you got a charger on the secondary, that you can buy in addition for 10, right? I think that system has its pros and cons as well, but in 10 years from now, if we still have smart bricks, I hope something changes with the charger because you
yeah.
don't need to get 35 of them in
I
one
think
release
thinking
wave.
through the challenge, it's hard to find a solution that like truly works. And I really like your criticism that it's wasteful, because it is. Like, let's just be honest. It is. And I mean, it's wasteful that we get as many brick separators as we do. It's a lot of plastic that is just sitting there. And it's a shame Lego won't like let us mail them back into them or something so they can recycle them. That'd be kind of cool, Lego.
I think there is some. I think it's a European regulation because the U.S. doesn't care about its consumers. That anything that charges has to come with an adequate charging cable.
Yeah.
Because I think Apple tried to get rid of the charger with the iPhone to cut cost, to improve on their already ginormous margin. And whatever the European FTC has said, no, you have to put a charger in it. You can't remove the charger.
I mean, so then maybe the solution would have been like a USB-C port or something, so then you're not having to do like
just selling the smart brick on the side, right?
And I truly think that is the better solution. The problem with something like that, though, is like it's not a great release strategy to be like.
No, yeah, it doesn't kind of force the innovation out into the market, right?
Right. So yeah, nobody's gonna buy the smart. If you're on the shelf at Target and you're buying the $60 Lego set with the option to spend $5 more on like the smart brick, and you're like, I got the Lego set, like I'm good.
That's why I think it's an option for a year or two from now, right?
Yeah. No, and I think that's fair. But anyways, I think that's an interesting take, and the implications of that are certainly fascinating. Of like, well, how do you solve that problem, right? Like I said, I mean, you solve it one easy way by just giving them a USB-C charging port, and then every USB-C charger that we have, which finally we've all agreed on is like the charging port that we're going to be using from now on, at least for the next
until
5 years.
USB-H comes out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have cables for that, right? So they're pretty ubiquitous. So yeah. Anyways,
I think it is a USB-C into the charging port. I think the benefit of this though is it's wireless charging, so
could you
have to plug
could you put your set over the charger?
Maybe. Yeah,
or do you have to take your smart brick out?
The technology will get that far. Yeah, there's going to be a certain
distance away,
right?
Yeah. But anyways,
so let's talk about the future.
Let's do it.
We teased up a couple things, right? What if it's not a 2x4? What if it's a 1x1 plate, right? What if the wireless charging pad? And Lego did a Kickstarter like 6 years ago now of a light system. I think it was officially sponsored by Lego. Like it was an official Lego product. And I think it was on Kickstarter. I should have looked it up. I apologize. But essentially it was lights and transparent bricks, 1x1 bricks. And the base plate actually acted as a wireless charging pad. So if you think of your modular, you could have had the street lamp wirelessly charging and receiving power to a light source from the base plate. And that's an example of, I think, innovation a little bit before its time. I would love to see something like that here. But what if that's the future of the smart brick, right? What if it's that simple in the future?
Yeah. So the thing you were referencing is something called iBricks, which says it's an industry-first patent-pending wireless lighting technology designed to be used with Lego construction components. I'm not going to open up the page. It doesn't necessarily explicitly say that was done with Lego, but or like Lego was leading it. But I'm literally looking at the description on Google. Yeah, I think all of your points are fascinating. That, like you mentioned, we could have a smaller one. We could have it could be so integrated into just the system that you're just buying the smart brick on the side. Maybe it's, like you said, using for lighting. We'd mentioned in the last episode, I was trying to think of like how it could get integrated. And I would mention like the Lego holiday sets of like, well, they have the light brick that does like lights up the fire, but could the smart brick do like the crackling noises of the fire too? And like kind of flicker the light a little bit more, and like, kind of when Santa falls down the chimney and Santa's visit, could we
Ho
get like
ho
a ho ho
ho.
ho or something, right? Like, I think there could be some really fun ways that like this system could get integrated into some more adult focused sets too. I have some other examples of applications. We already mentioned the UCS example, but it could also be used for like light control. So in the future, we could have a smart brick system integrated into like the modular building. Um, and this does sort of presuppose a light my bricks kind of situation too, or maybe it's just the smart brick that is put up into like a light structure like a chandelier, and when like the car associated with that modular building approaches it with its own smart brick, that's when like the chandelier illuminates. And when the car, or a house, right, and the car comes out of the driveway and drives away, that's when the lights in the house turn off.
The garage door opens.
Exactly. I also kind of thought this could be an interesting change. The Lego system that we know of it, right, with the bricks, has integrated on occasion things like Powered Up and Mindstorms. But now you could see the smart brick being used to do a lot more of that. And an example that I have is there's some really fun YouTubers who are using the smart hub for the Powered Up system, and they're jailbreaking it, and they're using what's called PyBricks. You'd mentioned it earlier, and it's a way that you can write code for those smart hubs. And there's some YouTubers, and I forget their names, but I will also link their video on the page. They are on our link tree. They use the smart hub and a color sensor to run a train on a one-way length of track, so it doesn't loop. And so their city that they were designing was space limited, where they couldn't put a loop in their train system. And so it runs down the track to one point, gets to the red brick tile in the track, stops. And then they've programmed it to turn around or to reverse and go back the other direction. Hits the green brick, stops. And so it just kind of crisscrosses back and forth. And you could do that with a smart brick, right? If it's reading the tiles or it gets close to a smart brick on either side. So there's just so many interesting things that you could do with something like this. Grinch, I know you had a few suggestions as well.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've kind of talked through a ton of them. I think my hope is that it becomes so integrated with how they do the system, right?
Yeah.
That you just buy it a la carte, right? And I think if you're trying to live in a world where everybody's happy, it can impact the play of the set, or it doesn't have to, right? And you're not left with this like pseudo 4+ set that doesn't look the greatest, and there's 5 better versions of X-Wings out there, and at the end of the day, like it's not the main selling point, right? That would be my hope. And I think it's certainly not there yet, but just based off of my like layman's imagination of technology R&D, like I know nothing about it. Like I feel like it could get there, right? I mean, I feel like it could. So West, I think ultimately, what does this all mean, right? It's funny because if you think about it, as a company, Lego's pretty bad at innovating. They have a really good product. They sell creativity, right? When Lego has innovated significantly in the past, it's through a new IP like Pokemon or something of that nature. It's this set has 10,000 bajillion pieces in it. This one's focused on adults. It's Lego at the end of the day, right? Their foray into a new system of bricks has not gone well. You could even argue the last time they were successful, I guess you could say Mario, right? But that's still kind of hit and miss, right? With the Mario system, like it is what it is. I don't think anybody's like crazy excited about it. In fact, I saw somebody on Reddit, Lego Trade, the other day that was like, "Hey, selling all my Mario sets, complete set." I thought this was going to be like a 3-year and done sort of situation, but they keep popping these things out, and I just don't care about them anymore. So I'm like, that's kind of my sentiment too. Um, but the last time they've done any like meaningful outside of individual pieces is like what, Technic?
Yeah, I mean they've attempted stuff in the past, right? And that's kind of where we get into that gimmick discussion. And I mean, it's even kind of burned them. I was thinking of that weird system that they came up with in between Technic and
Snap.
Bionicle. Yeah, Zap or whatever it was, where they've and kind of the original Mindstorm too, because I think that came out around the same time as well. It reminds me of the Lego Studio. Remember when they like literally sold a digital camera
Mm-hmm.
in the Lego set, and that was like the whole thing. And it's funny because the real innovation that has sort of come from Lego is both trying new things, but I think also ironically restraint. I mean, Lego has learned to manage their piece system extraordinarily well. Lego has
Mm-hmm.
learned to manage its color palette. The total number of colors that Lego has ever created is huge. And there's a great Washington Post article that we already have posted on our link tree about the colors of Lego that you can go see. And it goes like prominent year by prominent year. And I forget which year there was the most Lego colors available. It was sometime in the mid 2000s, maybe early 2010s, where they had like that was the time the palette was at its largest. And since then it's grown or shrinking considerably. And so you'll see Lego add colors every once in a while and subtract colors from their palette. And I think they've really dialed in what makes sense from that perspective. And so sometimes they'll add new pieces and they'll take away pieces, right? I think from that perspective, the real innovation here is that Lego has learned to become efficient and sustainable in the long run as like a business practice. But maybe it's that efficiency that now gives them the ability to try these little edge cases out every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure they can probably afford to let them lose. So, to be fair, but I don't know. That's kind of my take there.
Innovation comes in all sorts of sizes, right? All shapes and sizes and everything in between. Walmart is famous in the business world, not because of its rollback pricing that many people know, because of its supply chain logistics. I believe Walmart owns 20% of the inventory on the shelf in their store at a given time. A lot of people will partner with Walmart to actually Walmart doesn't actually buy the product from that company until it sells at the register. And
Hmm,
on average, they hold
interesting.
product for 10 days. They revolutionized what's called backhaul. So instead of sending my truck to Walmart and coming back to the DC, what they do is they send their truck to Walmart, drop off all the crap at that store, and they go, hey, Smuckers or whoever's got a plant right there, I'm going to go pick up my order from your plant, your mixing center, and bring it back to my DC, and you're going to give me a better price on it. And I'm going to pass it along to the consumer. It's called backhaul. They revolutionized the supply chain back in the 80s. Like that is why Walmart is what it is. Like that is
Yeah.
the backbone of Walmart. And so I think it's where I like what gives me excitement about this with Lego is that it's not the newest interaction with your phone. It's not TikTok, but for Lego bricks. It's not copying other innovation and integrating it into the Lego system. It's saying, what if we take the foundation of Lego, which is the brick, and made it smarter, right? Made it do more. Ha,
What
gosh,
if
I
we
should
called
work for
it
their
a
marketing
smart
department.
brick?
What if we called it dumb brick? Ooh, that one just sits there. This one's smart. But it's doubling down on the Lego itself, right? Versus trying to add in and make, the old adage is fit a square peg into a round hole, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it is a little bit, right? But we're all end with it, and then I'll leave it to you. And I've got one question for you after all that. I'm not excited about the next wave of this, right? I'm not excited about like, oh, let's just take this and throw this into Harry Potter and do this in Marvel and like let's get a Quinjet that moves. Like that doesn't excite me, right? Quite frankly, these sets don't super excite me. I'm excited if this is chapter one of a new epic from Lego. I'm there. It's got to
Okay.
start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
If this is all this is, and in 3 years we get the 2x2 brick, so it's just a little bit smaller, but it's got 10 more tiles, like whatever, right? Whatever. What this could be and what this could mean for Lego is ultimately what excites me. But for right now, I'm not the target audience. This can live in a world where we have this and we have regular system bricks. They can live side by side. You're going to get 3 smart sets a year from Star Wars, and you're going to get 53 regular sets a year from Star Wars. And that's great. This is for somebody, and it's not me, just like Friends is.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I like the comparison. I mean, like the generation one of like the Lego system play sets
Yeah,
compared to
without the
today.
tubes, right? They didn't have the tubes, right?
Yeah. And like the original minifigures without the arms and like even just, sets from the 90s and the 80s. Like you look at what we have today and that, and like I get it. There's some nostalgia, but I mean, the sets today are objectively better. I think we just saw one of the greatest January 1 Lego City Waves we've ever seen.
The bold word
I know,
claim,
but
Cotton.
dude, those were some fantastic sets.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's so much potential for what this could be. I will say, in the era that we're in, I really appreciate the fun with no, without the phone, right? And
Yeah.
especially for kids, I know at least in our household, and we're not trying to like hawk a lifestyle on anybody, but we're trying to emphasize with our kiddo more blocks, more wooden toys, more imaginative play through things like, things that we grew up with, Barbies. My daughter just got her first set of Barbies this Christmas. And she's playing with them a lot. She loves them. She loves Lego. But we aren't getting her tablets. We aren't getting her. She has a few toys that make noise, but not a ton. Not a lot of electronic stuff. And I think that Lego, I see that kind of. I think the arc is going back that direction. I think that's a little more in vogue with our generation, and it will be in our kids' generation of toys to have more of those like tangible play toys than tablets or whatever. And I'm curious if Lego is sort of, again, going back to the new Coke thing, innovating where they don't need to, but at the same time, because the innovation is still focused on the core product, I really appreciate that. So I'm sort of hesitantly right there with you. If like, excited to see what happens with this. There's so much potential. It could really go somewhere if Lego is smart and deliberate with it.
I think if Lego does this right and does it well and does it in the way that I want them to do it, which is the only way it can go, and I'll never be happy. No. My personal belief is that if Lego does this right and well, the next 3 years will be very important for the smart brick.
Yeah.
If it does not change significantly in 3 years, then it's option A, like I had outlined. It's just going to be the smart brick. This is it. If there is a clear innovation and R&D pipeline for the smart brick, this is the proof of concept. This is the early feedback they're going to collect year 1, and they're going to get a new product out at the end of year 2 or year 3. Great. If in 3 years we're sitting here talking about smart brick 2.0, first of all, hey, if in 3 years we're still doing this, like pat on our back, like I'll do it right now, and I'll do
This
it
is
on that
year
episode.
5
right?
of Lego AFOLs. AFOLs
Welcome to episode 1762. No, but if in 3 years, seriously, we're sitting here talking about Smart Brick 2.0, great. I'm excited for that day. I'm not excited for a year from now when it's the next wave of Smart Brick sets, and instead of an X-wing, we've got a Y-wing.
Yeah.
And it's R4 now. That's not going to do it for me.
With the flat back.
With the flat back. West, one question before we part. Well,
okay.
before we brick the mail. Are you going to buy a set?
No.
Oh, snap. Clutch power over here. Just no.
No.
I will. I'll buy one. Just to get my hands on it, experience it. I think we owe it to the listeners for one of us to do that, right? Probably not going to be I'm not going to pre-order it, but we tried the Mario, right? We had fun for 5 minutes. That was one night. We had fun for one night.
I tell you what.
Oh, tell me what.
A year ago, we had our conversation. I think it's actually further than that, longer ago. But we had a conversation about fake Lego. And one of our listeners said, like, hey, dudes, you should just try it. And where I lived last year, my coworker bought a mechanical shark that kind of looked like the koi fish ones that Lego did, where you can like spin the knob and it looks like it's swimming. And
man, we're hitting every part of Lego.
right. But it's fake Lego. And it's been sitting to here because I wanted to rebuild it and like kind of review it for the podcast to be like, hey, here's my thoughts. Because I know you weren't super inclined to do that. So you get the smart
all
brick.
I'll say is I think I gave you some notes like, bro, don't sign me up for that crap. I ain't doing it. You can.
You get the smart brick. You let us know. We'll have an episode where you let us know how the smart brick goes. And I'll let us know. On the same episode, I'll say, here's my kind of thoughts on alternative Lego. And we'll just wrap a bow on it and call it a day.
Oh, well, we're not even calling it fake Lego anymore. We're calling it alternative Lego. God, who are you, West?
We're in a post. Yeah. Anyways, let's moving on.
What are you doing? I'm building alt Lego.
Alt Lego, yeah.
No, that sounds like a deal. For the record, I'm gonna get the cheapest one and probably wait till it's on sale. Just throwing that out there. So
yeah,
looks like I'm getting the TIE Advance or Fighter, TIE Fighter, the Darth Vader's one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we make our smart listeners any more dumber with our banter, how about we move on to some brick mail?
Let's do it.
Brick mail. All right, Wes, why don't you take us through the first brick mail?
All right, well, I have my sip of water here. This is a long one, listeners and viewers, so buckle up. No, we appreciate it. We love it. It says, Dear Grinch and West, I've got a few thoughts I would like to share with you guys about some of the topics you've covered in the last few weeks. A few weeks ago, you brought up the price to piece ratio, as you have many times, and how it is a flawed way to evaluate the value of a set. I think it's funny how so many people die on that hill, thinking that a 1x1 stud should be valued the same as a 4x8 Lego plate. Doesn't really make sense. That's why I think weight would be a much better option, as the others have written about. You mentioned you feel weight should include the box, the plastic, the manual, but I just wanted to point out that price to piece doesn't include those things. It's just the bricks. So to make it a true comparison, I feel like weight shouldn't include them either. Fair point. The reality is that Lego must have many factors in determining the price of the set. I'm sure there are a lot of physical factors like the size of the manual, the minifigures, the larger pieces, the printed pieces, the number of stickers, and many other tangible variables. I'm also sure that there are many intangible variables that go into it as well. Since I started listening to you guys, I've really wanted to be a fly on the wall at Lego marketing to be a fly on the wall at a Lego marketing meeting to see how they truly determine the prices of sets, or better yet, work for them and add to the conversation. With that in mind, I found it interesting when I recently purchased the Hagrid and Harry's Privet Drive Escape, which has 124 pieces and 4 minifigures for $19.99. And I purchased the Hogwarts Castle Sorting Hat Ceremony which also had 124 pieces and 4 minifigures, plus a clear Patronus cat for $14.99. Before building them, I really tried to put myself in the headspace of figuring out what the $5 difference was. The packaging for the cheaper set was smaller, but it had 3 numbered bags inside. The more expensive set had larger packaging, but only 2 numbered bags inside, along with one 2x14 piece loose in the box. The cheaper set was a 7 plus set, while the other was an 8 plus set and had a slightly more complicated build with Sirius Black's motorcycle and the falling planter play feature. For fun, I switched the contents of each box and it both fit perfectly. I'm guessing Lego used the larger packaging to make it feel like you get more with the more expensive set. Other than the complexity of the build, the only other thing I can think that could potentially add to the cost is that it also includes a Hagrid minifigure, which we all know is larger than a standard minifigure. I also wanted to say that I love the conversation Grinch had with Alex Kostelik. I wish West could have been a part of that conversation, as it felt like the moment you guys made it. It seems like it's only a matter of time before you're interviewing Jamie Berard or another Brickmaster. The insight into Lego through Bricklink was great. I already purchased one BDP set, and listening to Alex made me want to support the designers by picking up more. My biggest takeaway from the interview was that Bricklink really wants these sets in the hands of Lego fans and doesn't care about resellers, which I really appreciate. Congrats on your first interview with a Lego employee. Thanks again for the great show, Pez. P.S. You're both wrong. Bob's Burgers, the full building, will be the next Lego idea set. Just trying to manifest this into reality.
Shots fired. Sheesh. There's one thing I really liked about it. First of all, my wife would love it if the Bob's Burgers set. So just joking. That'd be great.
Me too.
I liked the comment. It was like, hey, ever since listening to the show, like I've wanted to like find myself as a fly on the wall in a Lego marketing meeting, because I think we've mentioned that a couple times. Like, I just want to get the data. I just want to talk about their data, and I'm just it's one thing to like hear, oh, love your show. But it's another thing to be like channeling the same kind of mental energy that we are about like some of these conversations. Like, we get excited about some of these things, and it sounds like, you know, that's being passed along in the show to you. So I think that just, it means a lot, and tells me we're doing a good job. So thank you.
Yeah, Pez, I appreciate it. And I really love the experiment you did here with the 2 sets with the same piece count, but different price points. And they're within the same theme too. So I think this is a really interesting experiment. And I don't know if anyone else has ever done this before with other themes or has thought to do this, but dude, kudos to you, man, for thinking through that, because what a clever way to like analyze the difference there. And I really love that thought process of like, maybe they just put it in a bigger box to make you feel like you're buying more. That could totally be true. Let's put our tinfoil hats on for a second, and maybe that is exactly why it was in a bigger box, even though it had the same piece count as a cheaper set. I'm sure you're onto something with the Hagrid, right? I mean, again, you talked about things like the tangible differences of stickers, prints, special molds, right? Well, Hagrid falls under that special mold category. And so while he does count as one of the 4 minifigures, each minifigure torso can come out of the molding machine, and it doesn't, like, it could be a Harry, it could be a Hermione, it could be a Ron, right? Before even getting printed.
It's assigned at manufacturing.
Right. If it's like a black torso, it can be whatever. But like the Hagrid body has to be a Hagrid body. And so it's a hyper specialized piece. And so I would imagine, just thinking through your analysis here, that has to account for probably that larger price point. And I would also imagine that Lego does some rounding up, right? I mean, we know back in the day they had like odd price numbers, and every once in a while they'll have like a $67 set or something like that, or like a
like the reindeer battle pack was $46.99 or something like that, right?
Like, but usually it's
$26.99.
Yeah, usually it's like $10, $20, right? 25, 30. Right? So increments of 5 is usually the price point. And so I'm curious if like the Hagrid only added $2 to $3, and they're just like, just call it 20 and we're good, right? And then they did. So And so who knows? Maybe there's some other pieces there too that kind of explain some of that. But Pez, like, just a really fun thought experiment there, and I appreciate you writing in and sharing with us.
Yeah, I like the experiment as well, and yeah, there's so much that goes into it, right? Because it also might just happen to be cheaper for Lego to be like, hey, we're producing this many smaller sets. They can all fit into this one box size. If we order 1,000,000 of those boxes, it's 5 cents a box. If we order 500,000, it's 7 cents a box, and we have to order 2 of those. So really, it's 14. You know, it's 2 7-cent boxes versus we just get the one for 5 cents, right? I mean, there's sounds like we all need to go to a supply chain meeting for Lego. So that I'll just leave it there. Dockman writes in, he goes, hey guys, Happy New Year. As always, I enjoyed the podcast a great deal. One comment and one question about Bricklink. The comment: I purchased several Bricklink sets, but they are all part of my massive backlog right now. Over the holidays, I decided to build the popcorn wagon and add it to my winter village. I was disappointed to learn that the Bricklink sets do not include printed instructions. Did I miss this information somewhere? I think it will impact my purchasing decisions in the future. Maybe I'm spoiled, but I love Lego printed instructions. The question: how does the revenue work for a builder who has his mock accepted into the program? If it's a very popular build, can it become a windfall for that individual? Keep up the good work, Dockman. I actually haven't seen anything specific about that, specifically the revenue part, and we should have potentially have asked Alex about that one. I will look into that and let you know. And if it's
No reason
anything
we
more
can't follow
than,
up with Alex.
yeah, I mean, yeah, if the answer is anything other than no, then we'll share the information, right? But if it's no, it's no. I know on Lego Ideas, you do get 1% of the net sales of your idea set, and I think like 5 copies. So that I've seen Lego Ideas criticized because of that. I've also seen it praised because of that. I think because of that point, right? People market right their set and really push for it, right? And you get joint builders doing stuff almost like an organization popping out sets, right, to try to get them made. But I don't think Lego has a problem with that.
I mean, you're probably not making enough to live off of on, right? I mean, I don't know what. That's not like a set.
1% of $10 million
You think like the
is
Lego A-frame cabin?
$100,000. $10 million. You don't. How much was the A-frame cabin? $200,
I mean, okay.
right? Okay, so 10 million divided by 200. That's 50,000 Lego sets. 50,000 of those were probably sold in the first few months, if not months. The
50,000.
Bricklink designer program does 30,000, and for the longest time, they would sell out within hours.
Each set or total?
Each set. West, I have 900 sets in my own collection.
I get that. I just
What was when we did the episode with Back to Brick? How many Lego sets were sold every second around the holidays? I think it was 4, right? Every second.
yeah. I mean, I
That
suppose it's
is
possible. Yeah.
240 every minute. That is 14,000 every hour. And 345,000 every day. Economies of scale, my dude.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, so yeah, it's it could be an annual salary. It's
Yeah,
not going to be your
it could
full-time
get there.
job, but you're not making, yeah.
You probably wouldn't have to budget for Lego anymore. That's your Lego
That's a
budget
fair
for
point.
life. So that's neat. But
Yeah.
I've seen it where people pay like sponsored ad placement. Like don't pay money for that. Like just market it word of mouth. So yeah, we'll follow up. We'll see. But thank you again, Doc Man, for the comments as always, writing it. I did like the popcorn wagon one that you built. That was a good one. I almost got that one myself. And yeah, I thought I had heard that somewhere, but I had forgotten that yes, they do not come with printed instructions. So yeah. And that is a wrap of another episode of AFOLs Welcome. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to the show. If you would like to write the podcast, please email us at afolswelcome@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at AFOLsWelcome. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next one. See ya.